Okay, I'm
Everything is here
recording.
to stay, and it's always now. It's always now. There never was a used to be. Everything is here with me, and it's always now. So brace your heart, save yourself some sanity. There's really only you and me. There's always now.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Hello, hello,
Bravo,
everyone.
bravo.
Welcome, welcome to the Digital Roundtable. The crew is here. Llewelyn, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Very well. I'm enjoying some rather odd weather.
Excellent.
Somehow it's both snowing and sunny at the same time. There are spots of sunshine and some snow falling. Very interesting.
Got it, got it, got it. John, how are you today?
I am just absolutely fabulous. It's a little nippy and a little rainy in Austin, Texas, but it's another great day in paradise where every meal, every day is a holiday and every meal is a feast.
I
So
agree.
Women are beautiful and the men are handsome.
I'm happy to be in Austin, Texas.
And today is January 20th, Inauguration Day. Gentlemen, what's your take?
I thought it was I thought the speech was very, very good. It's the kind of speech that we needed. I don't know if we can achieve, you know, 10% of what he said, but it was kind of speech that a George Washington would give, or someone that's trying to bring a country, quote, back together. I think that the most embarrassing thing was that the outgoing president, was not there, but all of the other presidents were there. I also missed the big hats. You remember in the old days when I was in high school doing the inauguration, they had big hats on, but it was
Mhm.
fabulous. The walk to Arlington Cemetery was fabulous, and I thought it was good. The music was good, singing of the Star Spangled Banner and America the Beautiful. So I thought it was a good day. It's a good day for America. Democracy, that's one. We must learn to lose and to shake hands and say, see you next time. So right now, it is the Biden president, and we all pray that he does extremely well and that the economy continues will rebound, and that the vaccine will get us out of this pandemic that we've been in. But I thought it was just what we needed. Very, very interesting. But again, I thought it was a pie in the sky speech, a very, very good one, though. Extremely good one.
Right, I agree with that. I think it was a speech by Joe the Conciliator. He tends to be get along, go along, Joe, and that was present, but it was the right speech for the healing. It wasn't a rhetorical masterpiece. It wasn't like Kennedy's inaugural or the famous second Lincoln address, but he did the job and it was very fitting to him. He wasn't reading words that were outside of himself. It sounded, and I think he had a lot to do with the writing of it. It was very much his speech, his thoughts, and a good beginning. Of course, if you want reconciliation, you have to really move the country forward in other ways. It's not a goal in itself. You need to move it forward economically, and immediately he needs to try to succeed with his promise of a million of 100 million vaccinations in 100 days, which is ambitious, but it's achievable. And if he can do that, he will be made for a very long time. It will be, a shining, you can't take that away from me thing. If he fails, it will be the bumpy beginning of what could be a very difficult presidency. It's going to be
Yeah.
difficult because the challenges are difficult.
Absolutely. And I think that one of the biggest challenges would be immigration. All of the people who are lined up to get into America, and we are in the pandemic. Of course, that is a huge challenge, and they're all interrelated with the economy. But I also think that
I think I agree.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Around the
Sorry,
globe,
no.
we've been enhanced around the globe. I think that America must get its stance back as a country that people look to, not only for resources, but to save the world from tyranny. I think that Americans have given lives around the world for people when they're in trouble. I think we have sent people when they have earthquakes and fires. And I think we'll get back to that. And I'm encouraged.
I think it was a wonderful advertisement for America around the world. It really did that superbly. This was our thing. No other country has something quite equivalent to the inaugural. It was our thing. It was extremely well executed. It was sufficient. It was diverse. It was, but it wasn't pompous. It wasn't overwhelming. And about the hat thing, I saw Garth Brooks had his hat. Just looks like it's a Texas hat. So you feel a bit better now. Maybe you missed that he had his 10-gallon hat with him.
Yeah, but I like the black hats that they used to wear in the 1800s.
Well, it was a black hat. I mean, it was a symbol of the hats that were missing.
Yes, he did a good job singing "America Beautiful." I mean, Amazing Grace. He did a great job, and
I thought the among the singers, Lady Gaga really did a fabulous job.
She did. She did a great
and
job.
And a new star is born. Amanda, the poet laureate. It's a very interesting addition to the program. I think that it captured a lot of hearts. It was unexpected. And although the poems was a little bit like, well, it was okay. It was good. And I think we will get to read it and give our opinions on it as time goes on. But it was a wonderful addition.
It was. I give a B minus if I were grading.
As a poet or as a?
As the words. The words.
The words were conventional, but nonetheless, the delivery, the person, the story of the person, all of that was so extraordinarily fitting to today.
Yes, and she's very young, and she's bringing lots of people into the importance of what America is. I didn't even know we had a poet laureate in America.
Neither did I, and I don't know how you could really be that at 22 years of age. She was the California celebrated when she was 16 or something as a poet. She didn't just spring out into this recognition with her skill with words. So anyway, it was all very good. Now Biden has to start delivering, but my suggestion is that rather than deliver on all these promises, which he can't do, he needs just very few goals. First, the pandemic, second, the economy. And those two alone are almost enough. Now, there are going to be foreign affairs, crises intervene, all sorts of other things. But domestically, if he can get those two things done, he will be a very successful president. Unfortunately, I fear that the Democratic Party, which is a very contentious organization, is full of expectations, and one false footing, I think, right at the beginning has been the Keystone Pipeline. I mean, this has been litigated. It's been, and it's international. We started off by saying that they would pull the permit on the Keystone Pipeline by infuriating the Canadians. Somehow I've been writing about the Keystone Pipeline since 2005, I think, and I thought it was a done deal. Much of it has been built. It seems a little late in the day to cancel it to please a very small segment of the Democratic Party. You can't say you're going to build the infrastructure and start by canceling a major infrastructure project for starters. I think you should. I think he should have held back on that. And I hope this is not symptomatic of how the presidency will be, where he'll be throwing red meat to various small constituencies that nonetheless are loud and very pressing all the time.
And I think as the Republican Party rebounds, it needs to get back to its basic principle of Lincoln, the party that was founded to end slavery, which is freedom and self-sufficiency and less government as possible and love for the country. So I think the party needs to get back to those basic principles going forward. And as a matter of fact, the whole country probably needs to get back to those basic principles. But it would be interesting going back to see how we look backwards and then look forward and see what happens. It'd be very interesting times we're living in.
Yeah.
I would throw into those Republican virtues free trade.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. Self-sufficiency and free trade. Yes. And all families do the best that you can. If you need help, the government will help you. But you start with the basic family.
So I didn't see the speech, and I probably would agree with everything you have said, and I can think that it was probably a good speech, a good delivery. But a couple of questions about the speech. Did he mention the smart grid?
He did not mention
this was very general. I thought he was going to dwell a bit on cybersecurity because that's.
Did he mention 5G?
No, none of your little pet things. No, Andres. No 5G. No smart grid. No smart cities. None
and
of
no free trade.
Horses.
And there was no free trade.
Display.
There was no free trade. There was no how you create wealth. There was no how you create jobs. It was excellent what we needed. Pie in the sky. Democratic.
I want people talking about this stuff.
I want to talk about creating jobs and banks and interest rates, but
yeah, business models, industry.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen under this.
You have to, Johnny, as you know, you have to create wealth, and that creates jobs.
Yes.
When governments try to create jobs, and I watched this in Britain, whenever we've had a Labour government in Britain that has tried to create jobs, it's created a disaster. Yes. Look at the motorcycle industry in Britain, the car industry there. The creation of jobs are the opium of politicians. They say jobs. What you need is business, economic activity, and the jobs will flow from it.
Right.
You cannot actually create jobs unless you put everybody into the army.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's another missed opportunity because I'm still waiting for a president that is gonna jump on our language. But so let me switch gears. So I'm glad January 20th, a new beginning. I feel renewed. I took a long shower this morning and I'm all ready to go. And but when it comes to what's going on, I know that the vaccine is moving forward. So do we have a latest and greatest on that? The pandemic seems to be, it was flaring up and maybe slowing down a little bit right now. So where are we on distribution?
We're in chaos. We're in chaos because every state that I know of, people are yelling for the vaccine. Some are getting it, some are not. This state, Rhode Island, is doing terribly. It has more than 1 million people, I think, and we have 14,000 doses or something absurd. But practically every state, there are distribution problems. Massachusetts is finally getting it together with big central vaccination destinations. But you need the vaccine. I mean, we can organize the injection site. We could just have the vaccines. You can do it in stadia. You can do it in armories. You can do it in various outdoor, which is ideal, outdoor locations. But if you don't have the vaccine and the backup dose in most cases, you're really doing something very cruel to people. You're either half immunizing them or not immunizing them at all. And among people I know, there's a great diversity. Some living in Washington in their 70s or 60, late 60s have gotten the vaccine. No one here I know has gotten the vaccine except for doctors. and frontline people, but none of the aged people, I'm in the higher bracket there age-wise, have gotten theirs yet. And we're only in Rhode Island halfway through vaccinating people in the nursing homes. So it's chaos, and it's largely because the federal government failed to provide the vaccines they said they would provide. Now, there's a lot of speculation that this was political punishment because of sanctuary city provisions in this state. I don't know that for a fact. But what I do know is I can't go out and get vaccinated, and probably won't till March, which I think is really bad. Maybe they said, I looked on the website, maybe February and then they add or March, which are not the same time.
Yeah, it's the same thing here in Texas. And what I don't understand, I can order something from Amazon and it's here the next day. I just don't know about the supply chain. But you got two things going on. You have a wish for the vaccination, and then you have the whole idea of it's being delayed in some places because they're not sure of the ramifications. So the gossip or the talk in the public square has to do with, are you going to take the shot? Certainly, I'm going to take the shot. I pick up the paper today, and there was some hesitancy about the second shot because of the reaction that some people had. But with such a large number of people, you should expect not everybody to be on the regression line, so to speak. You should expect that the deviation of what we call a sum of squares would be around that line. And in the long run, then it's going to be good for everyone. But for the first time after the medicine was announced and the shot was announced, there's some, my gosh, maybe I should wait until everybody, other people, get the vaccine, and then I should go. So these things are tumbling together through history in the same kind of way. We have the vaccine, and then there are the concerns, and then there are people in America who never gotten the flu shot. There are people in America, and I think that we're going to have to deal with that in the long run. And something in my gut tells me that we're in for a long run still. I think we're still in for,
I think you're absolutely right. I hate it, but I think you're right. We're going to be in for the long haul. A lot of people will not get the shots. There is already a problem with people not getting their second shot. They get one and they don't get the rest. People, it's the same problem you have where there's a dependence on the entire population doing something and they don't do it. This is one of the weaknesses of, say, medical savings accounts. You can't rely that everybody would get them. Therefore, they're ineffective and are not a logical way to solve the medical problem. Shots, we're just going to have to keep it up. And we will probably have 80% of the population in 2 or 3 years vaccinated. And maybe 20% will never get vaccinated, the same people who don't get flu shots. And there are quite a lot of people who in childhood don't get their shots because their parents either don't believe in it or are too disorganized to take their children to the doctor to get their shots. To get 100% of the people in a large, diversified country to do something is asking too much.
It is.
Yeah. So clearly, lots of progress to be made, but it's me though that there's got to be a big benefit from the fact that the process has been accelerated dramatically, and I would suspect the FDA and other agencies could show some significant improvement on working with the private sector in terms of the future of drugs and approvals and distribution and all that. So maybe there's a big light at the end of the tunnel long term, as it relates to more vaccines and more innovation that doesn't cost so much money, and in order to enable smaller companies to be more part of the game, if you will, of drug development
I'm glad you mentioned that because,
So
Andre, I'd like to ask you what we can look forward to in terms of innovation coming out of this crisis. And are we going to see innovation beyond telephones, beyond essentially electromagnetic things? Are we going to see good medical innovation? Are we going to see good mechanical?
yeah, I think so, Llewelyn. The hottest segment for innovation right now in the venture capital sector is everything related to delivery, and the biggest focus on delivery on curve delivery. So I don't know if you are participating aggressively on delivering and being able to be a judge on your own, but Target, if you buy something from Target online, you can get it, you can pick it up at the store in an hour. And so I foresee the transformation of supermarkets and stores dramatically. In fact, I'm predicting that 5 years from now, supermarkets will no longer be a social experience inside, but there will be more of a come to a place to have a beer and sit in a bar, Starbucks, and then the guy will deliver the stuff to your trunk of your car, and then you get up and leave, kind of thing. You know, I think that the whole notion of walking around the aisles and all that, I think that's going to die, and because it's a wasted use of space and it's a pain in the butt. And I think that delivery is going to be one of the biggest transformative forces on how we leverage, get what we want, still be social, but do it differently. You know,
you're introducing there's a large negative there, and that is when people are buying from catalogs, etc., they really don't know what is available. One of the things that happens when people walk around Target or walk around a supermarket is they see what is available and they buy a whole bunch of things. It's called point of sale display. They're special.
Oh, I totally agree, but I think that happens because the human brain is really good in artificial intelligence, and so you think, oh, I need that, right? So I think that as the experience changes, and the delivery of all that information changes with AI and ML through the phone, right? Through your phone. It's just, you know, I'd rather go shopping and meet for coffee with the two of you while we're shopping. And then when I get to my car, everything I was shopping for isn't exactly like I wanted to. You know, and I think that's where it's going to go.
Andreas, that's a return to the past. I can remember grocery stores in my hometown where there were no aisles.
Yeah.
I can remember when we went to the library, they went and fetched a book for you. I can remember going in Franklin Tunnel, Louisiana, when I was a little kid, and you would give the list to someone and they will walk back and fill everything. I can also remember when everything was delivered. I can remember when milk was delivered, grocery was delivered.
That's right.
Bread. Everything was religious. So the idea of walking down the aisle is relatively new in the business model of mankind. The only problem with that, and this is what Llewelyn is correct, is that then the merchants will control kind of what you buy, not what you buy, but if they want to say that they're out of a product because they want to sell another product, it introduces error there. So you might say, I want some Colgate toothpaste, and they've got so much other toothpaste to sell. They will say, well, we don't have any Colgate. Can you take this? So when you put the merchant between them, then
absolutely. I can remember those days when you went up to the shopkeeper and you said, well, I need toothpaste, I need sugar, I need this, but you never specified the make because you didn't know what they had. And if it was canned goods, they had a sort of tool that get it down from a high shelf. If that is the future, I don't think that's innovation. Sorry, Andre. That's back to the future. I think we should go forward to the future.
Hold on. Well, Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear I hear your instinct response. I get it. But here's the thing, and we have discussed this in the past. Just like 3D printing is a key technology going forward for manufacturing purposes, the notion of the deconstruction of your DNA and buying the right food and the right things for you. So, for example, there's all these companies that you can buy your clothes by looking at the phone. The phone measures you, and then they send you clothes that is fitted to you. You don't have to go to a seamstress or your preferred, um, what's it called? The guy that makes your suits. I forget.
Taylor.
Uh,
Taylor.
your tailor. You don't need a tailor. You can use the phone to have this design clothes for you, and you send your DNA to your grocery store, and what you pick up is food that is designed just for you. So that's what I'm talking about. That's where it's heading. Now there are multiple runways to get there, but that's where this is heading. Custom fit, custom deliver for you, your experience you choose. You can see whatever you want. That's what it's coming. It's a very enhanced experience
I'm not
that
sure
is
of that at
designed
all.
for your needs.
I'm not sure I want it, and I'm not sure it's going to happen. But I can tell you that very rich people have always basically had that setup where they called in and got something, or they had their staff call in and get it. And the kinds of jobs this is going to create, warehouse jobs, delivery jobs, these are not really very good jobs. They're not jobs with a great future or great satisfaction to them. I'm not sure of this future that you've laid out is at all appealing. I think people like shopping. In fact, if you've ever known any shopaholics, they loved shopping. I mean, the whole experience was orgasmic for them. They went to the shops. And I don't terribly like shopping. I don't care for it. But people do, and I don't think you can take that away from them. I'd like to ask you, what's going to happen to the future of entertainment? How about you, Johnny? What do you think? Do you think we're going to go back to movies? Are we going to see plays again? Are there going to be concerts the way we've had them? We haven't seen them since last March.
Well, when I was a visiting professor at Rutgers University, and we had a party and a big screen television, and the New York jazz band, or the band, was in New York playing for us on a big screen. So I think you're going to see an increase in what the kids do in digital entertainment. It's there, and just like movies have migrated from one thing to the other. But, given the pandemic, we might have a return to the old drive-in theater.
Well, that might come about. That was largely considered to be desirable for its romantic options rather than for movie option.
Don't tell on yourself there.
And I don't. Well, we'll probably, and the technology will be much better. You'll have a different sound system. You'll probably listen to the sound on the radio, not have a box with a cord on it, etc. But all of this is pointing towards a sort of disconnected world where you don't have the normal interface with other people. And these interfaces are part of our life, whether it's the interface in a store or the interface of going to a concert or a play with other people, seeing them in the aisles, seeing them around. Even the health club, part of the health club experience is that you're all doing the same thing in the same place.
Well,
you do a lot of that at home by yourself, but it's less satisfactory and you don't do it as well on the whole.
Well, I think we're headed there.
People, as Barbara Streisand said, people need people. And one of the things that we're all suffering from now is a lack of people. We're not making any friends. We can talk to people on Zoom, but you don't make a friend. You're not expanding your human experience, your interconnectivity with people. You've got more interconnectivity on the telephone, but less with people. And we are social animals, and there's a hunger out there for people to see people and to interact with them. And I must say, I think it must be hell for young people at the moment.
Well, let me just say this. I have done experiments
Yeah.
at my University of Texas, just walking across campus, and the students' heads are buried in their device, and they're not talking to other people. They're watching.
I know
movies,
about that, but they're all in
texting,
the same
and
place.
they walk around like this. They're bumping to you. So gone are the days, I think, where people walk across campus, have a great conversation. So the individualistic nature of the device is already here. And the question, and all you have to do is follow.
Where are you seeing this? You're seeing this walking across campus. First time I saw this phenomenon was in Hong Kong 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when at the next table in the restaurant, there were 9 people, and not one of them was talking to each other. They were all talking to other people on the phone. My colleague and I were just amazed by this. However, they were in a restaurant. They could have been eating at home and talking on the phone, but they weren't. They were social animals doing this antisocial thing in a social situation, because clearly they had a need for the social situation. And, I also know that a lot of the sort of silly use of cell phones has gone down. When they first came out, people were on them to get the news. They're less so now. They fit into our way of living. But what is missing from our way of living is normal people and new people. And new people are part of what stimulates us and keeps us going, even if we don't think about that.
Absolutely. So there'll be different business
models. Llewelyn, have you ever used Instagram?
I have not myself, no.
Have you used TikTok?
No, I am confined to an occasional tweet, a lot of email. 30, 40 emails in half a day.
So a lot of what's happening in the social front is just the medium is changing. But I think that the interactions are happening at an aggressive pace. And businesses are accelerating. Non-magnetic businesses are accelerating at an aggressive pace. So, for example, anecdotally, a secretary of a friend of mine became over time in TikTok a makeup expert, and she would then get a product and do a critique product. And people would pursue her videos to see the critiques on the products. So she built a following of 100,000 people. This is 3 years ago. Then that crowd decided to tell her, and the best thing that she was a good critique of was eyelashes. And for some reason, not unbeknownst to me, there's a big market for eyelashes. Women buy eyelashes. So anyways, long story short, fast forward to now, she's running on TikTok an eyelash business. She makes her own eyelashes and she sells them. And she's doing $2 million a year on selling eyelashes to friends and people on TikTok.
I think what Llewelyn was relating to was this. Everyone understands the business model, but when a kid tells you they have 5,000 friends on internet, on Facebook, have never met those people in person, that's the big change.
Right.
Well, also, I got to take you up on the eyelash lady. The eyelash lady is doing fabulously, but the people buying the eyelashes and adding them to their faces are not doing that to go on social media. They're doing that to see people in person, to look beautiful in person. And
correct.
Therefore, there's going to be a pent-up demand for theaters, for concerts, for for sports events,
Oh, yeah.
for almost anything that brings us together, because the deprivation has been so huge. The same thing happened
I
to
agree.
some extent after the Second World War, where people were cut off, particularly in Europe, from normal life, and they just splurged on normal life afterwards. But when I asked this question, which has taken us down the road of eyelashes and other exotic developments about which I am extremely dubious, I was wondering what sort of technology would substantially change the future besides AI, which we know will. But I wonder, I just saw that,
Teleporting.
Graphene might become a storage material
Yes.
for electricity in a capacitor. That would
Absolutely.
change the whole world.
It's already there.
Well, it's not already there,
yeah.
actually, but graphene is getting more and more uses. But, you know, it's stronger than steel. It's an incredible conductor. It's very difficult to manufacture, and it's hard to use because you can't see it. It's one.
Yeah, we have in our incubator, we have 2 graphene startups. So.
Well, that's interesting. I'd like to come down and see your incubator. I could probably see it on the web, but I would see it and understand it an awful lot better in person. And let me tell you that I'm told there's a little university up here, not very important really, as you know, Brown, not like those Texas universities with a concentration of talent and skill and everything, because they're in Texas, of course. But after graphene, we get boraphene, made from boron, not from carbon. And apparently the versatility and the applications for that, but it's again a difficult manufacturing process and fairly polluting. Most manufacturing processes are dirty and create pollution, including the manufacture of windmills and solar cells. My friends in the environmental movement seem to be ignorant of.
Yeah. So I want to pick on something that you said that I think is really important, Llewelyn. So you two might recall, or not, sort of the aftermath from Prohibition. Are you predicting, Llewelyn, something similar to getting back to social gatherings? I mean, are you predicting after the COVID prohibition of getting together an explosion of bars, partying, you know, concerts? I mean, is that what you're predicting?
All that, except that you won't have the locations. If the restaurants and bars have failed commercially, they won't be there for you to go out and celebrate in. If the theaters have gone out of business, the movie houses have gone out of business, theater will come back because theater is a passion, but it's been very hard for actors. There are 2 lines of income, acting and maybe waiting tables when things aren't doing so well, have both been denied them by the virus. It'll come back, but there will be huge business opportunities in recreating that which we have now. Concerts, people will want to go to concerts. They will not want to watch it on a big screen when they can be there with their friends and all of the things that happen at concerts, all of the social and conferences. I remember there was a big lag in the conference business. I used to be in it after 9/11. And boy, 2 years later, people were surging to conferences because they like going to conference. They go to get information, but they go to seek another job, to see their friends, maybe to have a romantic entanglement, everything that could happen when people get together, which they can't do remotely. And whenever we've tried to have live and remote simultaneously, the remote has not worked very well. There were various people when it was first possible to film a conference and have people sitting in a room watching the film live, people at the conference. Everybody wanted to be at the conference. So there are going to be very wonderful business opportunities replacing the businesses that have failed. but it's not going to happen overnight, and they'll be different. I mean, new restaurants will not be quite like the old restaurants, and concerts may be different too. The technology is always improving. The audio technology improves dramatically year to year. Less wire, better fidelity, all of these things.
Well, let me add something to my distinguished colleague who lived down the street from that country club that they call Brown University. What you're also saying is, and let me give you a study here. I had a student at one time, and she came into my office all excited. And she was from Korea. And she was excited because she had just learned that you can carry a small book in your pocket with all of your addresses and phone numbers of friends on it. It was absolutely revolutionary to her that we used to do this all the time until it was digitized. So she found that, I don't like keeping my stuff digital. I really like writing it in a little book. And I said, I used to do that all of the time. So with products, there might be a way of going back to board games in terms of commercializing those things. One of the biggest sellers in Austin, Texas, right there on the drag, is a company that sells records, nylon records that people have never seen. I took a slide rule to my class and the kids were just fascinated because you didn't have to plug it in. It was not as fast. So I do think that we've got this, I call it a wartime effect. I don't call it a pandemic effect. When people have been, you cannot do what you were accustomed to doing. There could be just a big revolution when it happens. You might just go back to the movies, but it doesn't last long. It might last for 2 months. It might last for 6 months. But I do agree that after this pandemic, that there will be a resurging to different kinds of things. But I also think that bring you guys together, that the digital stuff enhances the face-to-face stuff.
Yeah, no argument.
Right.
Yeah,
Especially when you look
absolutely.
at relationships, right? So, you go online, you're looking for a dating partner. Of course, the picture there is 40 years old. So you got to make sure that you see them in person. But I think the digital enhances the face-to-face.
Yeah, yeah. How do you all see or do you see any signs or changes? There are good improvements or anything significant that you're seeing that it's a new behavior or a new way of doing things that you think is going to never leave us. It makes me wonder that we have shifted on purpose or forced to do things a certain way, and we're animals of habit, and it's been more than 21 days, so we are used to certain things. Do you see any of those things that we were doing for COVID going back to the way they were, or which ones do you see for yourselves that you're not changing back? Are you changing anything back, you think, or is there anything that you're keeping the way you do things?
Well, let's look at some unintended consequences of it. I was talking to my dear sister, and she said, my gosh, my travel savings is now $20,000. She likes to fly around the country and watch music, right? And then I was talking to another friend of mine from Canada, and she said, my gosh, I haven't been going to Starbucks 3 times a day, dropping $5. I cannot believe how much money that I have saved. So I think there'll be 2 things. I think people are going to become more consciousness of the importance of savings. And I think that people will become more consciousness through the organizations of how things would change. So the patterns of behavior will be changed by the work organization. For example, the great University of Texas at Austin might say to me, well, Dr. Butler, we spend $20 million a year sending faculty to the Academy of Management, the American Sociological Association, but we're not going to do that anymore. It would be on Zoom. Because it's absolutely amazing how the sharing of paper and the sharing of ideas is now being through Zoom. The problem with that is I can't shop my PhD students. I can't go in a bar and meet people and say, this is my next PhD student, which Elias went to Princeton. And what I would do with those professional meetings, it wasn't just to give a paper, it was a social events to shop and introduce my students to other people. So I think what's going to happen is that for those things that bring an economic reward, I think they're more likely to change. For those things that do not, they won't change. But I think the biggest change will be what our workplace does and how our workplace organize our life.
Well, I agree with all of that. I can't argue about that. I was talking to somebody at a big trade association, and he said one of the things we've learned is that we don't need all the travel we've been doing.
Right.
And I don't think we'll go back to it. We won't have it in the budget. Now, that will have consequences. I think it will have consequences, mostly the loss of new ideas and stimulant that come in social situations. And what you will have, though, is a huge desire to travel from ordinary people. So you'll probably see a resurgence, and there may be less product. There may be fewer cruise ships. Some of them have been taken permanently out of service. There may be fewer hotels to go to. And if you go to your favorite town, it may have fewer restaurants. Even Austin might have fewer restaurants. So you've got a force against a resurgence of travel because the hospitality business is in collapse, and it's going to take a long time to return. It will return, but it will not, by which time patterns and expectations will have changed. For example, there is an expectation that everybody will go to Europe, every middle-class person once or twice in their lives, but they may find that's no longer an expectation. They may prefer to drive to Mexico or to Canada. I think there are going to be big changes in patterns, expectations, anticipations, and we will see some things return and some things will not return, and there will be new things. But the one thing I can tell you about new things is we cannot guess at them. They are never the things we anticipate. Who would have thought that cell phones could have had the impact they have had? I remember in my office, a fellow brought in a cell phone. It was enormously heavy. It was a whole suitcase. And we all looked at this thing and said, nah, that'll never catch on. And then we thought remember the Iridium phone, which was going to work off a satellite? I was staying at somebody's ranch in New Mexico, and he had one of these, and we were taking it outside. It never worked. It went away. Where's the Segway? The Segway was going to change everything. It didn't change anything, and they're not even manufacturing Segways now. So anticipating future demand and future patterns, but nimble people will be prepared for the new possibilities, which are going to be there. It is going to happen. It's going to be a target-rich environment for entrepreneurs. But what those targets are, we're not quite so sure.
Well, I think the biggest impact would be air travel. You know, if you look at air travel, it's the business people that really carry the load. And for those private planes, I have a private plane, but somebody wrote Southwest on the side of it, which really made me mad. Southwest Airlines on the side of it. But if we look at the gig economy, if we look at Southwest Airlines, for example, it's all geared to the person and the business person who travels. I mean, it was our transportation around the state of Texas until Herb took it to New Orleans, and now it's going everywhere. But can you imagine just a 25 or 30% cut in business travel, what that will have on the Uber market, on the hotel market, on the restaurant market? Because it's the business people that carry lots of the stuff. And so when you start cutting at the company level, the ramifications are just horrendous.
And what happens when you get that kind of cut? You get consolidation, amalgamation. You're likely to see fewer airlines, fewer hotel chains, fewer restaurant chains. You're likely to see a great concentration because when companies can't grow, they amalgamate.
Right.
They combine. So we're going to see an increase in de facto monopolies. They won't always set out to be monopolies. Very seldom does a monopoly set out to be a monopoly. It becomes one because of circumstance, which is what has happened to the big tech company. Which raises.
Let me switch topics, and this topic is a good one. So we have a new administration on. We're all about digitalization and innovation in our program. What is the future of the 230 law?
It's going to be revised. Something has to be done. We cannot have a commercial company dictating what is the speech that's allowed. They simply cannot have a democracy and have that power. There's enormous power vested with a commercial company, and I don't think the companies want it. I submit, and I think that the tech companies, the big ones that we're talking about, are essentially common carriers. They're carrying your lady with the eyelashes, they're carrying my program, they're carrying this program, they're carrying my columns, etc. And they're very good at it. The technology has been phenomenal, but they should not have the power of censor. On the other hand, you should not have people saying things that are untrue or inflammatory. And one of the big problems we have coming out of this administration is truth, but it's not just this administration. I was in Eastern Europe 3 years ago, and the big problems there they have are coming out of Russia. They don't know what's true anymore because Russian propaganda is so effective. The Russians even stage events to change the news. So we're going to have to look at this whole issue. My guess is you get rid of 230, but you have to substitute something else, which might be a beefed up kind of something derived from the laws of libel and the prosecutions under libel. I don't know how that would work, but it would seem to me that it'll be in that direction. We may even get an equal time law, as we used to have in broadcasting, come back. You can't say this is, you can't even say what is hate speech. I mean, one person's hate speech is another person's humor, is another person's scorn, is another person's hyperbole, is another person's political statement. It's not necessarily hate to define hate speech when it could be, there's much of Shakespeare can be defined as hate speech. I mean, you can't do it. It's impossible. You cannot control speech. And we're asking or allowing big tech companies, for good reason, very good reason, to control speech. And that's a very dangerous situation. I don't have a solution, but I think we should be thinking about it a lot.
I do agree with you, and I have a solution. I think my biggest disappointment this year was throwing people off of Twitter. I think that it will become a utility. And remember, it is not so much what was said online. In this case, it was the administration backing what was said online. There's always been a lot of, quote, difficult things said on the internet. But one thing about growing up, when I grew up, you could say anything you wanted to and you debated it. There was no such thing as hating. There was no such thing as political correctness. I've said many times, I did not go to Vietnam and get a Bronze Star for combat and stand up with the American flag for somebody to tell me what I can say and I cannot say. I'm the judge of that. So I think that Twitters in the future will become a utility. It will be a common carrier for the people. It will be regulated not by private enterprise, but it will be a utility just like water, a utility just like electricity. And I think that is the solution, because I was so disappointed for two things. Number one, I don't know what people are thinking. And number two, I can't trace it from my research. I would love to do that. But Llewelyn, can you imagine Twitter becoming a utility like electricity?
Well, yes, I can, but I'm not even sure that's the solution, because when we've had any kind of self-regulation, and I point to the Hayes office in the movie industry, we lost a lot of creativity because of the nonsense of the self-censorship by the movies. Actually, people did better when they had a government censor and they could do clever things to get around, like British poets who wrote about homosexuality with words that weren't known. The people writing plays to get around bans. Remember, there was shock when Pygmalion, the Shaw play, used the word bloody in 1913, and the Lord Chancellor's office, which was the censor, had a fit. It didn't work very well, but people got around it. Self-censorship you don't get around, and it may be in the end more damaging. I don't know the answer here. I think that libel has, I can't go out and say that you're a da in the newspaper because you'll sue me for libel.
Right, and that's what it was about. 230 was about that you cannot hold the tech companies.
Yeah, because but if you simply repeal 230, which I think really in many ways should be repealed, you will get a different kinds of censorship. The companies will not allow the speech on their systems to begin with, because they will be worried about the libel liability and everything you put up. I used to work on newspapers in England where a lawyer sat with the editors checking everything because the libel laws were so strict. If you just repeal 230, you don't substitute something else, some other form of regulation, have the companies censoring preemptively. Now they're censoring retrospectively. You'll get preemptive censorship. Oh no, we can't run that, we can't run that. And caution will dominate and a lot of speech will be lost and you'll get a very bland, homogenized kind of speech. That is not the answer, simply repealing 230. You've got to repeal 230 in conjunction with something else that gives the companies the confidence to run what they're sent, and the responsibility for what is put on the line rests with the author, not with the carrier, not with the delivery system. Otherwise, the delivery systems will become too cautious.
It's an interesting problem, but the free speech, I'm a college professor. It's been a problem at my university for at least 15 or 20 years. I can barely get my students to speak up on certain topics for fear that they would offend somebody. I don't even have that word in my vocabulary. I would like to debate you, but the idea of offending somebody has become very
the universities across the world are having this problem.
Yeah, and that's a problem.
Which has been an oversense, too much woke, as they say nowadays.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it'd be interesting to see what happens. Clearly, 230 has taken us to a place where I don't think anybody thought we would be. Right? It's uncharted waters, and somehow the whole society has escaped the reservation through the 230 gateway.
Right.
Well,
and it needs to be brought back somehow.
Without introducing a greater evil of preemptive censorship.
Right. Now, not to close in a bad chapter, but a mom told me the other day something that I thought was interesting. She said, we argue about all these tweets and this and that, and take down who said this and who said that, and that seems to be a big deal to people. Yet something far more sinister and evil, like child pornography, is still allowed in the internet. Why is that? Why? You guys have 2 cents on that? How can something as evil as child pornography be protected by freedom of speech, but yet 230 allows companies to take anybody off of some Twitter thing that is ridiculous stuff?
Well, Andreas, when there's a problem in the news with child pornography, it all blows up just like gun control. So when
Right.
there's a shooting, everybody goes back and say, well, my gosh, let's get rid of all the guns. When there's a killing in child pornography, everybody goes back and say, let's get rid of all the guns. And so that is the difference. The other thing about the tweets is every tweet is cataloged, right, in the Library of Congress. So what that means is that scholars in the future, 40, 50 years from now, can really, really do the math and do all the tweet and tell you what America was thinking about. You know,
So, but is the issue, is the core issue behind all this anonymity or you know, you see what I'm saying? I mean, it seems like a lot of people are using the freedom of speech to protect the ability for anonymous feedback and comments to be made without traceability to the author.
yes, but look, you know, pornography is the biggest money maker on the internet. Okay, so
Right.
it is huge when it comes to revenue. On the other side, it's just a way that people used to talk in bars. Now they can tweet it, and I think everything we say is situational based, and sometimes we say things and we are sorry for saying it.
I think there's been a social acceptance that child pornography is not acceptable, but that adult pornography is. You know, there's a huge body of work defending the freedom of speech, a huge body of decisions of freedom of speech embracing pornography as artistic or simply as a statement. But here the companies, I think, can censor. They can censor child pornography and ought to. But the whole issue is very difficult, and it is a very slippery slope.
Yes.
So let me ask you the last question on this, back to a comment I just made. So do you think, or where do you think is this core issue of anonymity? Should every person who says something on any medium be responsible for what they say, and whatever they say should be linked to who they are, or should it be okay for anonymity to be there?
But remember that there's no such thing. If you tweet it from your phone, they're going to find you. There's no, even if you don't have your name associated with it. It goes back to what Llewelyn said. It said earlier, you know, we used to, with newspapers, all of that stuff was managed before it went out. And now it's not managed. But I don't think there's anything such as anonymity now. Because if you tweet it, then unless you take your cell phone and your computer and throw it in the ocean, they know where it's coming from.
Right.
But we always had things that were published anonymously, and somebody knew who the authors were. This requires a lot of conversation, a lot of debate. Much of it should take place probably in the universities before any action is taken, either to repeal 230 or to introduce a new level of libel or to discipline the companies. It is uncharted.
Right.
We do not know where we are. I don't think that any of the tech companies set out to be dominant publishers, and they are de facto publishers.
Yeah, right.
They should establish that they are common carriers like the old telephone company or the Western Union was, where it had no responsibility for the content. But the public needs an ability to attack libel, slander, whatever you're calling it. Slander is spoken, libel is published. I don't know what you call it on the internet. Is it slander if you're speaking on Google?
Yeah.
I don't know. But we know what we're talking about. We're talking about unfair statements, criticism. Right. We have another problem, which also should be part of the same conversation. What do we do about total untruths? How do we deal with untruth? The big enough lie told long enough becomes a kind of truth, and it never goes away, as you can see with
it's the same thing with the conspiracy. It's the same thing with the Me Too movement. It's the same thing with anything that happens in the workplace. It's the same thing with he said, she said. All these issues are here now, based on, and the internet can really, really spoil someone's life, and I think that's what we're looking at now.
All right, Johnny, take us away.
Ooh, okay.
On that note,
to sit and wonder why, babe. don't matter anyhow. And it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, if you don't know by now. When the rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window and I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. Don't think twice.